Attention, Eagles Nation. The Philadelphia Eagles are already turning the page and shifting all their energy toward the next challenge of the season. The expectations are sky high, and the whole league is watching closely to see what this team can deliver on the field. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere is full of confidence, and the fans couldn't be more excited about the direction this team is heading. If you feel the same way, say it with me. Thank you for everything. Now I've got a question for you. What grade would you give for all the work that's been done so far? For me, it's the highest possible. It truly feels like we're living through one of the most thrilling eras the franchise has seen in decades. Many already believe the Eagles are on track to fight for another Super Bowl. And honestly, I don't doubt it for a second. But before we look too far ahead, there's a huge game coming up. And that's exactly what we need to talk about right now, Nanar. Now, let's dive straight into what went down in that season opener at Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles pulled off a 24-20 win over the Dallas Cowboys, and while it wasn't flawless, it was the kind of gritty statement victory that sets the tone for 2025. This was the first time we saw the starters in real game action since the Super Bowl, and no preseason snaps meant the chemistry had to be rebuilt under the lights. Naturally, that led to some early mistakes, but what stands out is how this team found a way to win. The defense got off to a rough start, surrendering 4 scores on 4 first-half drives, but then completely flipped the script with masterful adjustments. They shut Dallas down in the second half, giving up 0 points. That is the mark of an elite team with elite coaching. Let's talk quarterback, because Jalen Hurts was nothing short of spectacular. He went 19 of 23 through the air, dropped a 51-yard bomb to Jahan Dotson, and added 2 rushing touchdowns that completely changed the game. Hurts wasn't just efficient. He was dynamic, combining poise in the pocket with the ability to break Dallas's defense on crucial downs with his legs. We are watching him evolve into a more complete passer while still being one of the league's most dangerous dual-threat quarterbacks. When your quarterback is elite, you always have a chance to contend for championships, and that's exactly what Hurts showed last night. On the offensive side, Saquon Barkley looked every bit as explosive as he did last year, putting defenders on skates with his cuts and powering in for a 10-yard touchdown. A.J. Brown, while clearly not at 100% coming off his hamstring issue, made a clutch grab when it mattered most.
Dallas Goedert was that steady safety valve Hurts could rely on, racking up 7 catches and keeping the chains moving when Brown and DeVonta Smith were taken away. And don't overlook Dotson, who made the most of his opportunity with that deep strike. It was a perfect throw and a perfect catch that flipped the field at a crucial moment. Defensively, while the first half was shaky, the second half was a showcase of adjustments. Jordan Davis stepped up in a massive way after Jaylen Carter's ejection, logging 3 pressures, 6 tackles, and showing stamina we haven't consistently seen before. This is a player who worked on his conditioning, and it paid off as he became a force in extended snaps. Rookie Jair Campbell also flashed, defending the seam with a big breakup and earning the highest defensive grade of the game. Zach Bond looked every bit like the All-Pro he was last season, and Byron Young nearly came away with an interception. Special teams also deserve credit, with Jake Elliott drilling key kicks and proving once again he's one of the best in the business. But of course, the headline-grabbing controversy was the Jaylen Carter, Dak Prescott spitgate. Initially, all the cameras showed was Carter spitting on Prescott's chest, leading to an immediate ejection that completely altered the defensive game plan. Prescott himself admitted after the game that Dallas' entire strategy changed once number 98 was out. At first glance, Carter's action looked reckless and costly, reigniting old concerns about his maturity. But after NBC rolled out alternate angles, the story got more complicated. Dak clearly went out of his way to provoke Carter, spitting on the ground toward him and nodding right before the retaliation. That doesn't excuse Carter's decision. Spitting directly on a quarterback in front of an official is unacceptable, but context matters. The league will have to decide how to handle discipline, and both players could face fines. The Eagles, however, now have to ask themselves, can they trust Carter long-term with the type of contract that will lock in $30 to $40 million per season? The victory over Dallas matters not just because it's the Cowboys, but because it shows this roster can overcome adversity, win without being perfect, and still grow into something even more dangerous as the season unfolds. Hurts is proving he belongs among the NFL's elite. Barkley is already showing why he was brought in as a workhorse. The defense, even without Carter for most of the game, held up when it counted most. But there are still concerns that need addressing, from Adoree Jackson's struggles in coverage to the wide receivers having trouble creating separation. What happened after Carter's ejection really highlights both the strength and the vulnerability of this Eagles team. Without him anchoring the middle, Dallas immediately shifted their game plan to attack the heart of the defensive line. Prescott admitted in his post-game comments that losing number 98 completely altered their approach, and it showed. The Cowboys ran straight at the Carter-less front, exposing gaps that wouldn't normally be there. This was a reminder that as talented and deep as this roster is, certain players are irreplaceable, and Carter is one of them. The Eagles need him on the field, not in the locker room watching after a costly mistake. But let's not let this overshadow the guys who stepped up. Jordan Davis might have had the best game of his career, playing 87% of the snaps and showing he can be more than just a two-down run stuffer. He pressured Prescott, clogged lanes, and proved his conditioning has paid off. That's exactly the kind of development Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman need to see, especially with Davis eligible for a fifth-year option soon. Jair Campbell looked like a steal of the draft at pick 31, flying around the field, breaking up passes, and even forcing a fumble with Byron Young. When you see rookies making that kind of impact in Week 1 against a division rival, it tells you Roseman may have found another gem. On offense, it was encouraging to see different players stepping up when Dallas' game plan took away the stars. Barkley was as electric as advertised, but Dallas Goedert's role can't be overstated. 7 catches for 44 yards doesn't jump off the stat sheet, yet every one of those grabs came at critical times. He and Hurts have built chemistry over the years, and in this game it was their connection that stabilized the offense when the wideouts were locked down. Speaking of receivers, A.J. Brown clearly wasn't at full strength, but that one clutch grab showed why he's still one of the most dangerous players in the league. DeVonta Smith may have been quiet, but his blocking downfield, along with Brown's, paved the way for Barkley's touchdown run. It was a total team effort. The offensive line also deserves recognition. Tyler Steen's block on Barkley's touchdown was textbook, finishing his assignment and giving Barkley the space to cut and explode into the end zone. That's the kind of detail Nick Sirianni will love when reviewing the tape. The unit as a whole gave Hurts just enough time to make big throws, including that perfect 51-yard strike to Jahan Dotson. Dotson's emergence as a reliable WR3 is something to keep an eye on. He had a strong spring and summer, and now he's showing it in live action. With defenses focusing so heavily on Brown and Smith, Dotson can quietly become the X-factor in this offense. Now, let's circle back to the defense and what could be a long-term concern. Adoree Jackson was flat-out bad. 7 targets, 5 completions, 103 yards allowed. Against a team with weapons like Dallas, you can't afford that kind of liability. It raises the question of whether the Eagles should give Jacorian Bennett more snaps or even explore the trade market for another corner. Roseman has never been shy about making bold moves. Remember, he even called the Cowboys about Micah Parsons in the past, so don't be surprised if cornerback becomes a position to watch. The rest of the secondary had mixed results. Quentin Mitchell showed flashes but also got hit with a questionable PI call, while Kular Regime looked solid in his limited snaps. Still, CeeDee Lamb got